In this exercise, we'll take a document that's already using styles quite extensively, and we'll add numbering. We'll add two types of numbering. Heading numbering, so our headings will automatically be numbered, and we'll also add page numbering. We'll combine the two together into the table of contents, which is where we see headings and page numbers collide. We'll start with this document, which is already heavily styled. It's just a definition of a version of HTML. We needn't worry about the contents. Now I want to look at the styles just to see what's going on. There are quite a lot being used. I see heading 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 is being used, including a few others that are complicated with borders and different fonts and so forth. And if I scroll through, I can see that there's quite a lot going on in this document using styles, indents and colors and different fonts. But what we're going to do is we're going to add numbering to the headings. And for instance, here is a heading. What is XHTML? This paragraph right here is heading 1. I want to apply it to all headings, and in fact that's what happens. So when we apply it to heading 1, it's going to apply to heading 2, 3, 4, and so forth, all the way up to heading 9. So to do that, I'm going to choose Modify. From the Format button, I'm going to choose Numbering. And then we can have bullets. We can apply to styles. We've seen that before. Numbered lists for just paragraphs one after another. But outline numbered applies to the headings. In particular, these options, these 4 panels that we see at the bottom, we can customize them as much as we like. Choose one that's close to what you like. I'm going to choose this legal one. But of course, when you click the Customize button, you can get very fancy. Won't do that for this exercise though. So I'll say OK. And OK, and once I do, you'll notice over here on the sidebar where the styles are, you see all the headings suddenly appear through heading 1 through 9 with all their numbering systems. And then in the document, the numbers are actually applied as well. So what is XHTML is chapter 1, then there's subchapter 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and then chapter 2, which is a heading 1. Subchapters will be heading 2. Chapter 3, there's 3 headings in a row of different levels. Heading 1, Chapter 3, Heading 2, which is Subchapter 3.1, and Heading 3, which is Subchapter 3.1.1. All that numbering is being handled by Word. We don't have to do it. We rearrange things, it'll automatically renumber things the way they should be. Now, the next step it asks us is to insert a table of contents. This is step 4. And right here where it says insert the table of contents, so I'll just get rid of this since we don't need it. And we'll insert the table of contents from the Insert menu, then Reference, then Index and Tables, and there's the Table of Contents tab. We can choose a different format if we like, but all of these can be controlled quite easily. I'm going to go back to From Template with styles, and we'll see how to do that momentarily. Show levels is also important. Whatever number this is, we're going to show up to that heading level. So to show level 3 would be I'm going to show heading 1, 2, and 3. If I change it to 2, I'm just going to show headings 1 and 2 in the table of contents, and so forth. But I want to show headings 1, 2, and 3, so I'm going to set that to 3, and then OK, and my table of contents will be inserted. Now the exercise asks, why do you suppose the titles at the beginning of the document were not numbered? That was earlier on. For instance, table of contents didn't get numbers when we applied heading numbering. Neither did status of the document abstract. Well, it turns out they don't use the heading styles. They all use something called cover subtitle, a style that was invented just for this document. Not heading 1, not heading 2. And the very first paragraph is cover title. It's not one of the heading styles. The heading styles are special. The heading styles appear in the table of contents, and the heading styles get numbered when we use outline numbering the way we did. I don't want these headings, as they are, to have numbers or to appear in the table of contents because they're before the table of contents. In particular, I do not want the heading that says table of contents to appear in the table of contents because that would be highly redundant. So we don't use heading styles if we don't want it to appear in the table of contents, and also if we don't want it to be numbered. If I click anywhere in the table of contents, I see that it turns gray. Anytime I click somewhere and it turns gray in the background, that means Word controls it. For instance, I'll scroll down here. This number here, if I click on it, you'll see the gray background. That gray background means that Word controls that numbering. I should not change that. In fact, it's difficult to change, so I don't want to. So for the table of contents, same deal. It's pulling out the headings from the document. It's pulling out the page numbers from the document, even though we haven't added page numbers yet. It knows what pages the various contents appear on. So anytime we see gray, we don't want to mess with it. Just leave it be, because Word controls that. Now we do want to, it does mention, we want to, first we want to make sure, notice here's a page break. I'm in the normal view. Page breaks are just these dashed lines. If I go to the print layout view, we'll see that there's a page break right there after the first two entries of our table of contents. But in the normal view, it just appears as a dashed line. I would really rather the table of contents appear entirely on a page by itself. So I'm going to, rather than change the cover subtitle style, which is what this paragraph is, table of contents, I'm going to manually change its paragraph settings to have a page break before. That way it'll always be at the top of a page. I could insert a manual page break there, but it's a little more elegant, I think, to adjust a paragraph using the paragraph settings. Now our table of contents is still little too long, because it's got all this extra space, and the extra space is actually between each line is actually the extra padding. The space after each paragraph is added because the table of contents is based on the normal style, and the normal style in this document does have 12 points of space after each paragraph. I want to change the look of my table of contents, and it turns out it's all done with styles. But I don't see the styles over here. Even if I go looking for them, they will not appear on the right-hand side. And the styles are called TOC1 for any table of contents entry that corresponds to a heading 1. TOC2 for any table of contents that it corresponds to a heading 2. TOC3 for anything that corresponds to a heading 3, and so forth. But those styles don't appear, so I have to go hunting for them. And the way I find them is I click on my table of contents and sort of reinsert it. Insert, reference, index, and tables all over again. And this time I'm here on the table of contents page, and under modify it will show me the styles being used, the TOC styles. There's the list of them. Number 1, I'll modify it, and we get to the very familiar style screen that we're used to. I want to go to Format Paragraph and remove the extra space. Auto essentially means a blank line. I'm going to just change that to 0. OK, OK, and OK. And I'm going to modify TOC2 as well. Modify, Format Paragraph, and 0. Notice it's got an indent. That's the indent right there. If you want to play with it, change the font, change the look of it, that's where we do it. And TOC3, I'll modify that one as well. And Format Paragraph, and I'll change it to 0. OK, and OK. And now it'll ask me, do I want to replace? Because remember, I went to insert reference, table of contents. Do I want to replace it? Sure, why not? It won't hurt anything if I don't. But now we'll see, because I've taken all the space out of those TOC styles, I don't see the extra blank lines between each of the table of contents entries, which is exactly what I wanted. Now immediately after the table of contents, it asks us to insert a section break. So I'll go to Insert again, Break. Here are the different types of break, page break for instance, but I want a next page section break, meaning that it's a section break and the next section will begin on a new page. So I'll say OK. There's the section break. I do see it in the normal view. In the page layout view, print layout view, it just looks like a new page. I don't actually see it, but I prefer the normal view usually. I've got an extra blank paragraph up here, so I'll just hit delete to get rid of it. Don't want any extra spaces. We don't want any extra blank paragraphs, certainly, in our document. Now I'll go above. It asks me, we're going to set the page numbers. I'm going to go before the section break. So as long as my caret, the flashing bar, is before the section break, that's fine. That's going to affect this section break. And I'm going to insert page numbers. So insert page numbers, the insert menu used heavily today. Page numbers, bottom of page, right is fine. I want to change the format, and instead of Arabic numerals, I'm going to use lowercase Roman numerals, I, V, and so forth. And I'll say OK. and OK. As soon as I do that, it'll switch me to the print layout view so I can see my page numbers. There's I, and the table of contents itself is on page II. Now, it turns out we're lucky. The next section actually starts on page 1 using Roman numerals, and then page 2, sorry, not Roman numerals, these are Arabic numerals, and then 3 and so forth. So it's already done that. But if I needed to say, you know, I want a different numbering system for my other section, and that's why we needed that section break, so that I can have a certain page numbering before the section and a certain page number after the break. If I wanted to change the page numbering for this section, I'll go to Insert again, even though the page numbers are already there. Page numbers, bottom page right, that's fine. Format, and I'll choose, I would choose this numbering system. I could choose any of the others that are available to me. And I could continue from previous section, which means it would start at page 3, but I'm going to start at page 1 because the Roman numerals are done, sort of the preface to my document is done, and now we're into the meat, the real body of my document. So I'm going to start over at 1. So OK. Now my table of contents has already updated itself. You'll notice what is XHTML, my very first heading 1 paragraph, which is right here in section 2, is already shown as being listed on page 1. So that's already been done. If I change something in the table of contents though, and I want to update it, it won't update automatically. It'll update after I close my document and then save it and then reopen it. It'll update it just before I print it, so I'll always print the most recent version, or it'll update if I force it to update. I can do this by selecting the entire document, is probably easiest. Select all, and hitting the magic F9 button. Now I've just discovered why it won't update is because the F9 button stops and starts my screen recorder. So I can't actually do it here, but normally you'd select the entire document with Control A, and then you'd hit F9 to update it. But I can't do that, and I'll have to find another way of doing that. But that doesn't bother us for this exercise, and we're done.